Do not be worried, he can never see us. He is so blind forever.
Victor Harrington stood in the darkness of his bedroom, the blindfold dangling from his fingers like a noose he'd willingly place around his own neck for months. His hands trembled, not from age, not from fear, but from the pure, unfiltered rage coursing through his 60-year-old veins. Downstairs, he could still hear them. His wife Elena's laughter echoed through the marble hallways of their $10 million estate, mingling with a deep, arrogant chuckle of Marcus, her personal trainer. The same Marcus who'd been coming to their home 3 times a week under the pretense of helping Victor with his rehabilitation. The same Marcus who was currently in Victor's study, in Victor's house, with Victor's wife, doing things that made Victor's stomach turn. If you think you know where this story is going, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Victor had suspected for weeks, maybe months if he was being honest with himself. But suspicion and confirmation were 2 different beasts entirely. He played blind for 117 days. He'd counted every single one. Every morning he'd wrapped that silk blindfold around his eyes and pretended the world had gone dark, all because he needed to know the truth about the woman who'd promised to love him forever. The woman who'd stood beside him at that charity gala 5 years ago, stunning in her red dress, her brown skin glowing under the chandeliers, her smile bright enough to make him forget the 30-year age gap between them. He'd fallen hard and fast, like a fool, like a rich, lonely fool who thought his billions could buy him genuine love. The security footage was already loaded on his tablet, hidden in his nightstand drawer. Every room in the house had cameras, every room except the bedrooms and bathrooms, because even Victor had boundaries. But the study, the living room, the kitchen, all monitored, all recorded, all backed up to a secure cloud server that only he and his head of security, James, could access. Victor had watched it all earlier that evening, forcing himself to sit through every painful second. He'd watched Elena guide Marcus into the study at 2:50 in the afternoon, exactly 30 minutes after she'd checked on Victor in the master bedroom, kissing his forehead and whispering that she was going for a massage appointment. He'd watched her lock the door behind them. He'd watched Marcus pin her against the mahogany desk that had belonged to Victor's grandfather, the same desk where Victor had signed the papers that built his tech empire from nothing. He'd watched his wife's face contort in pleasure with another man, her wedding ring, a flawless 5-carat diamond he'd spent 2 months selecting, catching the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. The timestamp on the footage read 3 hours ago. Victor had remained upstairs, blindfold on, audiobook playing through his headphones, playing his part perfectly while his marriage disintegrated beneath him. Now, standing in the dark at 11:30 at night, Victor made his decision. Tomorrow morning, everything would change. But it wasn't just the affair that made his blood boil. That would have been betrayal enough, a knife to the heart that would have required lawyers and divorce papers and a swift, clean cut. No. What made this truly shocking, what elevated Elena's treachery to an art form, was what he'd heard them say after they finished. Victor had been sitting in the upstairs hallway, blindfold off, ear pressed to the banister, listening. Marcus had laughed, that cocky sound that made Victor want to walk downstairs and throw the man through a window. "How much longer are you going to keep this up?" Marcus had asked. Elena's response had frozen Victor's blood solid. "Until I figure out how to access the offshore accounts," she'd said, her voice cold and calculating, nothing like the sweet, sympathetic tone she used with Victor. "His lawyer is smarter than I thought. The prenup is airtight, but there's ways around everything. Victor's old, Marcus. He's sick. Everyone knows stress can trigger real medical conditions. If something were to happen to him while he's in this vulnerable state." She'd trailed off, but the implication hung in the air like poison gas. Marcus had whistled low. "You're cold, baby. That's what I love about you." They'd kissed again, and Victor had retreated to his bedroom before he did something he'd regret. Now, Victor pulled his phone from his pocket and opened his messages. James had been sending updates all evening. The divorce attorney was ready. The forensic accountant had traced every dollar Elena had been quietly siphoning from their joint accounts, $247,000 over the past 8 months, hidden in small withdrawals that wouldn't trigger alerts. The private investigator had photographic evidence of 12 separate meetings between Elena and Marcus at a downtown hotel, dating back 7 months. Everything was documented. Everything was ready. Victor typed out a message. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Make sure she's here. James responded immediately. Copy that, boss. Everything's in place. You good? Victor stated the question. Was he good? His wife had been cheating on him for over half a year, plotting to steal his money, possibly plotting something worse. He'd wasted 4 months of his life pretending to be blind, degrading himself, making himself vulnerable, all to confirm what his gut had been screaming at him. No, he wasn't good, but he would be. He typed back, I will be. Victor walked to his bedroom window and looked out over the manicured grounds of his estate. The pool lights were still on, casting blue reflections across the patio where he proposed to Elena 3 years ago. He'd given her everything. His home, his name, his trust, his heart. She'd taken it all and asked for more, then betrayed him in the most spectacular fashion possible. Tomorrow, Victor would take off the blindfold for the last time. Tomorrow, Elena would learn that the man she'd been deceiving, the man she'd been cuckolding in his own home, the man whose death she'd been casually discussing with her lover, had seen everything. Absolutely everything. Victor smiled in the darkness, and it wasn't a kind smile. It was a smile of a man who'd built an empire from nothing, who'd crushed competitors and outlasted rivals, who'd survived hostile takeovers and corporate espionage. Elena had made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated him. She'd seen a blind old man and assumed he was helpless. Tomorrow, she'd learn the difference between blindness and patience. Tomorrow, the reckoning would begin. Victor set his phone on the nightstand, lay down on his bed fully clothed, and closed his eyes. Not because he needed the blindfold anymore, not because he was pretending, but because he wanted to savor this last moment of calm before the storm he was about to unleash. Downstairs, he heard the front door finally close as Marcus left. He heard Elena's footsteps on the stairs, heard her pause outside their bedroom door. She'd come in soon, probably to check on him, to play the devoted wife one more time. Victor kept his breathing steady and slow, mimicking sleep. The door creaked open. Elena's perfume, Chanel No. 5, $200 per bottle, purchased with his credit card, wafted into the room. She approached the bed, and Victor felt her lean down to kiss his forehead. Sleep well, baby, she whispered, her voice dripping with false affection. I'll always take care of you. Want to know what Victor does when he finally confronts Elena? Does she break down or fight back? Drop a comment below with your prediction. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because next chapter is going to blow your mind. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Victor woke at 6:30, exactly 90 minutes before the confrontation that would end his marriage. He'd barely slept, his mind replaying every moment of the past 5 years, searching for the signs he'd missed. When had Elena stopped loving him? If she ever had, when had the mask slipped enough that he should have noticed? He sat up slowly, his back aching the way it always did these days, a reminder that 60 wasn't just a number anymore. The house was silent. Elena was still asleep in the guest bedroom down the hall, where she'd been sleeping for the past 2 months under the guise of not wanting to disturb his recovery. Victor now understood it had nothing to do with consideration and everything to do with freedom. Freedom to text Marcus at 3 a.m. Freedom to plan her next move without Victor's presence complicating things. He stood, stretched, and walked to the bathroom, catching his reflection in the mirror. His dark brown skin showed every one of his 60 years, the lines around his eyes, the gray threading through his close-cropped hair and beard. He'd let himself go a bit during the charade. Stopped working out as rigorously, stopped caring about appearances. After all, what did a blind man need with vanity? But the eyes staring back at him were sharp, clear, and burning with purpose. Today, Elena would see those eyes again, and she would understand exactly what she'd lost. The morning routine felt surreal. Victor showered, shaved, and dressed in one of his tailored Tom Ford suits, navy blue with a crisp white shirt and a burgundy tie. He looked like he was preparing for a board meeting, which in a way, he was. This was business now, cold and calculated. At 7:15, he heard movement downstairs. Elena was awake. He could hear her in the kitchen, probably making her usual breakfast of Greek yogurt and berries, probably checking her phone for messages from Marcus. Victor's jaw clenched. He forced himself to breathe, to maintain control. Rage was powerful, but discipline was stronger. He'd built a $3 billion empire by staying calm under pressure, by making strategic decisions when others panicked. This was no different. At 7:30, his phone buzzed. "James, we outside." Attorney Silverman, forensic accountant Chen, and 2 witnesses for documentation. "On your signal." Victor responded, "Give me until 8:15. I want to talk to her first. Alone." James sent back a thumbs-up emoji. Victor pocketed his phone and took one last look around the master bedroom. He'd bought this house 12 years ago, after his first wife Margaret passed from cancer. Margaret, who'd been with him since before the money, who'd raised their 3 children, who'd loved him for 32 years without ever asking for more than he could give. After she died, Victor had thrown himself into work, into building his legacy, into anything that would stop the loneliness from consuming him. Then came Elena, beautiful, charming, attentive Elena, who'd approached him at that charity gala with a smile that lit up the room. She'd asked him about his company, seemed genuinely interested in his work, laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny. For the first time in 3 years, Victor had felt alive again. They dated for 6 months before he proposed. His children, Michael, 42, Jasmine, 39, and David, 35, had all expressed concerns. "Dad, she's 35. You barely know her. The age gap alone." Michael had said during a tense family dinner. "Maybe you should take more time," Jasmine had added, her voice gentle but worried. Even David, usually the most easygoing of his kids, had pulled him aside. "Pop, I just want you to be happy. But protect yourself, okay? Get a solid prenup." Victor had dismissed them all. He'd been insulted, honestly. Did they think he was some senile old man being manipulated? Did they think he couldn't recognize genuine affection? He'd had his lawyers draw up an ironclad prenuptial agreement. Elena would get nothing in a divorce except what he explicitly gifted her during the marriage. She'd signed without hesitation, which Victor had taken as proof of her sincerity. Now he understood she'd been playing a longer game. Now he understood his children had seen what he'd been too lonely, too desperate to see. At 7:50, Victor walked downstairs. Each step felt weighted with significance. The marble staircase curved elegantly down to the main foyer, where a massive crystal chandelier hung overhead. A wedding gift Elena had insisted on, $60,000 from a boutique in Paris. Elena was in the kitchen, and Victor could see her through the archway. She wore a silk robe, her dark brown skin glowing in the morning light, her natural hair pulled into a loose bun. She looked beautiful, like she always did, and for a moment Victor felt the knife of betrayal twist deeper. How could someone so beautiful be so ugly inside? She sensed his presence and toned, her face immediately shifting into that expression of concern and devotion she perfected. "Victor, baby, you're up early, and you're dressed. Did you manage okay with the buttons? I should have been there to help." She rushed over, reaching for his arm the way she always did when he wore the blindfold, ready to guide him. Victor stood perfectly still, his eyes locked on hers. For 3 long seconds, Elena continued her approach, her hand outstretched, her face full of practiced sympathy. Then she noticed. Her hand froze in midair. Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened slightly in shock. "Victor, you're not wearing the blindfold." Victor finished, his voice cold and level. "No, Elena, I'm not wearing the blindfold. I can see perfectly. I've been able to see perfectly for the past 4 months." The color drained from Elena's face. Her hand dropped to her side. She took a step backward, her body language shifting from caregiver to prey in an instant. What are you talking about? The doctors said what I paid them to say, Victor interrupted, taking a step forward. There was no accident, no neurological condition, no blindness. It was a test, Elena, a test to see if the woman I married, the woman I trusted with my heart, was the person she claimed to be. Elena's shock was giving way to something else now, calculation. He could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how much he knew, how much he could still salvage. Victor, I don't understand. Why would you do something like that? Do you know how worried I've been? How hard I've worked to take care of you? Her voice was rising, shifting from confusion to indignation. It was impressive, really, how quickly she adapted, how hard you've worked. Victor's voice remained dangerously quiet. Is that what we're calling it? Tell me, Elena, does Marcus appreciate your hard work? Does he know you're planning to kill me for my money, or is he just in it for the sex? The mask shattered. Elena's face went from tan to ashen, her eyes wide with genuine fear now. Victor, I don't... Who's Marcus? I don't know anyone named. Stop, Victor said, his voice cutting through her lies like a blade. I know everything. Elena, everything. And in exactly 10 minutes, you're going to learn what it costs to betray Victor Harrington. Will Elena confess or continue lying? What will Victor's revenge look like? Comment below and hit that notification bell because next chapter is coming, and the truth is about to destroy everything Elena thought she knew. Elena's legs gave out. She stumbled backward, catching herself on the kitchen counter, her silk robe slipping off one shoulder. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps, and for a moment Victor almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then he remembered Marcus's hands on her body in his study, remembered her cold voice discussing ways to access his offshore accounts, remembered her casual consideration of whether his death could be arranged to look natural. The sympathy evaporated like morning dew under a scorching sun. Victor, please, Elena whispered, tears forming in her eyes. Real tears this time, but tears of fear, not remorse. Let me explain. It's not what you think. Marcus is just what? Victor's voice was ice. Just your personal trainer? Just a friend? Just a man you've been sleeping with in my home, on my furniture, while I sat upstairs pretending to be blind so I could confirm what a lying, scheming snake you really are? He pulled his phone from his pocket and tapped the screen. Instantly, the large television mounted on the kitchen wall came to life. The security footage began to play. Elena's face appeared on screen, laughing as she unlocked the study door yesterday afternoon. Marcus followed her in, his hands already reaching for her waist. The timestamp read 2:15 p.m. Elena's real-life face went from tan to gray as she watched herself betray her husband in high-definition clarity. Turn it off, Elena begged, her voice breaking. Please, Victor, turn it off. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But Victor didn't turn it off. He let it play. Let her watch herself press against his grandfather's desk. Let her hear her own moans of pleasure echoing through the kitchen. Let her see exactly what he'd seen, feel a fraction of what he'd felt. When the footage reached the part where she and Marcus discussed the offshore account, where she mentioned his vulnerable state and something happening to him, Victor paused it. The image froze on Elena's face. Cold and calculating, nothing like the woman who'd just been begging for forgiveness. That, Victor said, pointing at the screen, is who you really are, not the crying woman in front of me, not the devoted wife who read to her blind husband and promised eternal love. That calculating, greedy, murderous woman on that screen, that's a real Elena. Elena slid down the cabinet to the floor, her head in her hands, sobbing. I wasn't going to hurt you. I swear I wasn't. That was just talk. Just stupid talk. Marcus was pushing me to get more money faster, and I just said things to make him happy. But I would never what? Victor's voice cracked like a whip. Never kill me, or never get caught. The doorbell rang, echoing through the mansion. Elena's head snapped up, her eyes wide with new terror. Who is that? she asked, her voice small and childlike. Victor checked his watch. 8:15 exactly. James was punctual as always. That, Victor said calmly, walking toward the foyer, is the beginning of the consequences you've been running from. He opened the door to reveal James, a tall black man in his 50s with the bearing of the military veteran he was, along with 3 other people. Attorney Rebecca Silverman, a sharp-eyed black woman in her mid-40s carrying a leather briefcase. William Chen, Victor's forensic accountant, a slight Asian man with wire-rimmed glasses and a tablet under his arm. And finally, 2 notaries Victor didn't know personally but who'd been vetted by his legal team. "Good morning, Mr. Harrington," Rebecca said, her voice professional and crisp. "Shall we proceed?" "Come in." Victor gestured them inside. Elena had pulled herself up from the kitchen floor and now stood frozen in the archway, her robe clutched tight around her body. She looked like a deer facing down a pack of wolves. Rebecca and William exchanged knowing glances. They'd seen the evidence, knew exactly what kind of person Elena was. James remained by the door, arms crossed, his expression unreadable but his presence intimidating. "Elena Harrington," Rebecca began, pulling documents from her briefcase. "I'm attorney Rebecca Silverman, representing Victor Harrington in these divorce proceedings. You are hereby served with divorce papers, effective immediately, per the prenuptial agreement you signed on June 15th. 5 years ago, you are entitled to 0 assets from this marriage. However, Mr. Harrington is willing to offer you $10,000 as a final settlement, provided you sign these papers right now and vacate the premises within 2 hours. Elena's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. 10,000? This house alone is worth 10 million. I've been his wife for 5 years. I have rights. William stepped forward, his tablet screen glowing. Actually, Mrs. Harrington, you have extensive wrongs. Over the past 8 months, you've illegally withdrawn $247,000 from joint accounts, falsifying Victor's signature on 6 separate occasions. That's wire fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. The evidence is documented here. He turned the tablet to show her spreadsheets, bank statements, forged signatures side by side with her real handwriting. We also have photographic evidence of 12 hotel meetings with Marcus Jenkins dating back 7 months, phone records showing over 3,000 text messages between you two, and security footage from this residence showing repeated instances of adultery. Rebecca picked up where William left off. The prenup clearly states that in the event of infidelity, you forfeit all claims to marital assets. But Mr. Harrington, in his generosity, is offering you $10,000 in his silence. His silence? Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, Rebecca continued, her tone sharp. Mr. Harrington could press criminal charges for the financial fraud. He could release the security footage to the media. Imagine how that would play out. The young wife of a famous billionaire caught cheating with her personal trainer while her husband was supposedly blind and helpless. He could sue you for emotional distress. Instead, he's offering you a clean exit. Sign the papers, take the money, and disappear. Or refuse, and face the full consequences of your actions in a very public trial. Elena looked at Victor, her eyes desperate. Victor, please, we can work this out. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but we can go to counseling. I do love you. I know I hurt you, but I can change. Please don't throw away 5 years of marriage like this. Victor stared at her, this woman he'd loved, this woman he'd trusted with his heart and his home. For a moment, he saw the Elena from the charity gala, the woman who'd made him believe in second chances. Then he remembered her voice discussing his death like it was a business transaction. You made your choice, Elena, he said quietly. Now live with it. Sign the papers. Elena's face hardened. The tears stopped. The desperation melted away, replaced by cold fury. You think you're so smart, don't you? Setting up this whole elaborate test, recording everything like some paranoid psycho. You want to know the truth. Victor? Fine. I never loved you. Not for one single day. You're old. You're boring, and the only interesting thing about you is your bank account." Her words were designed to wound, and they did, but Victor kept his expression neutral. "Marcus is twice the man you'll ever be," Elena continued, her voice rising. "He's younger, stronger, better in every way that matters. And yes, I took your money. I earned it. Putting up with your old man habits, your constant need for validation, your pathetic attempts to recapture your youth by marrying someone half your age. You were a meal ticket. Victor, that's all you ever were." The room fell silent. Rebecca and William looked uncomfortable. Jamesy's jaw clenched. But Victor simply nodded, as if Elena had just confirmed something he'd suspected. "Thank you," he said. "I needed to hear that. I needed to know that my instincts were right, that there was nothing worth saving here. Sign the papers. Elena, or I make one phone call, and by tomorrow morning, your face will be on every news station in America, and Marcus's too. I wonder how his other clients will feel knowing he sleeps with married women for money." Elena's fury crumbled. She knew she was beaten. With shaking hands, she took the pen Rebecca offered and signed the divorce papers. Each signature felt like a nail in a coffin. When she finished, William handed her a cashier's check for $10,000. "You have 2 hours to pack your personal items and leave," Rebecca said. "Anything you don't take will be donated to charity. Any attempt to contact Mr. Harrington after today will be considered harassment and dealt with accordingly." Elena took the check, stared at it for a long moment, then looked at Victor one last time. "You'll regret this," she said, but her voice had no strength behind it. She turned and walked upstairs, her silk robe trailing behind her like a surrender flag. Elena just lost everything. But is Victor's revenge complete? What happens when his children find out? Drop a like if you're Team Victor, and subscribe because next chapter reveals the aftermath that nobody saw coming. 2 hours later, Victor stood in the circular driveway and watched Elena load the last of her suitcases into the trunk of a Mercedes, a car he'd bought her for their second anniversary. She'd packed light, only taking clothes and jewelry, nothing sentimental because there was nothing sentimental to take. Their entire marriage had been a transaction, and now the account was closed. She didn't look at him as she climbed into the driver's seat, didn't offer any final words or apologies. She simply started the engine and drove away, the tires crunching on the gravel until the sound faded into silence. Victor felt nothing. No relief, no satisfaction, no sadness. Just emptiness, like someone had scooped out his insides and left a hollow shell. James approached, placing a firm hand on Victor's shoulder. "You did the right thing, boss. She would have destroyed you." Victor nodded but didn't respond. Rebecca and William had already left, their work complete. The house felt massive and cold, every room echoing with memories that now felt poisoned. He walked back inside, climbed the stairs, and for the first time in 4 months, Victor Harrington broke down. He sat on the edge of his bed and cried, for his foolishness, for his loneliness, for the love he thought was real but never was. The call to his children came that evening. Victor had put it off all day, dreading their reactions. Michael answered first, his voice immediate with concern. "Dad, is everything okay? You never called this late." Victor took a breath. "I need to tell you something. About Elena. We're getting divorced." There was a pause. Then Michael's voice came back carefully measured. "What happened?" Victor told them everything. Not the humiliating details, but the broad strokes, the affair, the financial theft, the coldness of a betrayal. He conferenced in Jasmine and David, and as he spoke, he could hear their reaction shift from shock to anger to something that sounded disturbingly like vindication. "Dad," Jasmine said softly when he finished, "I'm so sorry this happened to you. But I have to be honest, we saw this coming. We tried to warn you." "I know," Victor admitted, his voice rough. "You were right. All of you. I was too stubborn and too lonely to listen." David, ever the practical one, jumped in. "What do you need from us? Pop, you want us to fly out? Come stay with you for a bit." The offer warmed something in Victor's chest. "No, I'll be okay. I just needed you to know." I needed to hear your voices. They talked for another hour, his children offering support and surprisingly little judgment. When Victor finally hung up, he felt fractionally better. Hollow, but not completely alone. He poured himself a glass of bourbon, 50-year-old Macallan, a gift from a business partner in Scotland, and walked out to the pool. The water reflected the stars, calm and beautiful, indifferent to human drama. Victor sat in one of the lounge chairs and stared at the house he'd shared with Elena. Every window held a memory now tainted with lies. The kitchen where she'd made him breakfast while texting her lover. The study where she'd betrayed him. The living room where she'd read to him with false tenderness. He'd have to sell this place, he realized. Start fresh somewhere new, somewhere without ghosts. The bourbon burned going down, but it was a good burn. Cleansing. Victor's phone buzzed with a text from James. Security flagged something. Elena's credit card just got declined at a hotel downtown. The 10 grand won't last her long. Victor typed back, not my problem anymore. But even as he sent it, he wondered what would happen to her. Would Marcus take her in, or would he disappear now that the money had dried up? Would Elena find another wealthy Mark, or would she finally face the consequences of her choices? 3 days passed in a blur. Victor worked from home, buried himself in conference calls and emails, anything to avoid thinking about the wreckage of his personal life. His employees at Harrington Technologies noticed nothing amiss. Victor had always been intensely private, and the divorce hadn't been announced publicly yet. But on the 4th day, his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Victor almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Harrington. A woman's voice, young and nervous. This is Detective Lisa Morrison with the Atlanta Police Department. I'm calling about your wife, Elena Harrington. Victor's blood went cold. Ex-wife. What about her? There was a pause. Sir, Elena was admitted to Grady Memorial Hospital 2 nights ago. She attempted suicide. Overdose of sleeping pills. She's stable now, but she's been asking for you. I know this is unusual, but given the circumstances, I wanted to reach out personally. The glass of bourbon Victor had been holding slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Suicide. Elena had tried to kill herself. The woman who'd been so cold, so calculating, so ready to move on with Marcus and his money, she'd tried to end her life. Mr. Harrington, are you there? I'm here, Victor managed. Will she recover? Physically, yes. Mentally, that's harder to say. She's under psychiatric evaluation. But, sir, she keeps saying your name. Keeps saying she's sorry. The doctors think seeing you might help her recovery, but I understand if you don't want. I'll come, Victor heard himself say. Text me the address. I'll be there within the hour. He hung up before the detective could respond, before he could change his mind. James appeared in the doorway, drawn by the sound of breaking glass. Bus? What happened? Victor stared at the shattered glass, at the bourbon soaking into the floor. Elena tried to kill herself. She's in the hospital. James's expression shifted to something complicated, concern mixed with suspicion. And you're going to see her. It wasn't a question. I have to, Victor said, though he couldn't explain why. I have to know if this is real or just another manipulation. He grabbed his keys and headed for the garage, ignoring James's protests about security and caution. Victor drove himself to the hospital, his mind racing. Was this genuine remorse or another scheme? Had losing everything broken Elena? Or was this a play for sympathy, a way to guilt him into taking her back? Grady Memorial loomed ahead, its lights bright against the night sky. Victor parked and walked through the emergency entrance, his heart pounding. Detective Morrison met him in the lobby, a black woman in her late 30s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Mr. Harrington, thank you for coming. I have to warn you, she's pretty fragile right now. Whatever happened between you two, she's been through a trauma. I understand, Victor said, though he wasn't sure he did. The detective led him through sterile hallways to the psychiatric ward. Through a window, Victor could see Elena in a hospital bed, her wrists bandaged, her face pale and drawn. She looked small, broken, nothing like the woman who'd spat venom at him 4 days ago. The detective opened the door. "I'll give you privacy, but I'll be right outside if you need anything." Victor stepped inside. Elena's eyes opened, focused on him, and filled with tears. "Victor," she whispered, her voice raw. "You came. I didn't think you'd come." Victor stood at the foot of her bed, maintaining distance, his guard still up. "The police called. They said you asked for me. Why, Elena? Why did you do this?" Elena's tears spilled over, running down her cheeks. "Because you were right. About everything. I am a liar and a cheat, and I destroyed the one good thing I had. After I left your house, Marcus wouldn't even answer my calls. Said it was fun while it lasted, but he wasn't about to tie himself to a broke woman with nothing to offer. I went to the hotel and I couldn't see a way forward. I couldn't see anything but what I'd thrown away." Her voice broke completely. "I'm so sorry, Victor. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I'm sorry for all of it. You deserve better. You deserve someone who saw your worth beyond your bank account." Victor felt something shift in his chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of understanding that Elena was human after all, capable of regret and pain. "You tried to kill yourself," he said quietly. "Over money? Over Marcus?" "Over me," Elena sobbed. "Over who I became. Over the person I saw in that mirror and didn't recognize in the mall." Can Victor forgive the woman who destroyed him? Is Elena's remorse real or just another manipulation? Hit that subscribe button, because next chapter will reveal whether this broken marriage has any chance of redemption. Victor pulled a chair close to Elena's hospital bed and sat down slowly, his mind warring with itself. Every logical instinct screamed at him to walk away, to leave her to face the consequences of her actions alone. She'd betrayed him, stolen from him, plotted against him. She deserved no sympathy, no second chances. But looking at her now, broken, bandaged, genuinely shattered, he couldn't find the satisfaction he'd expected. Revenge was supposed to feel good, wasn't it? Instead, it felt hollow and bitter, like ashes in his mouth. "Elena," Victor began, his voice carefully neutral. "I need you to be honest with me. Completely honest. Is this remorse real, or is this another game? Because I won't be manipulated again." Elena closed her eyes, fresh tears streaming down her face. "It's real, Victor. God, it's so real it's killing me. When I swallowed those pills, I wasn't thinking about money or Marcus or any of it. I was thinking about the look on your face when you told me you could see. The way you looked at me like I was nothing, like I was garbage. And the worst part," her voice cracked, "the worst part was knowing you were right. I am garbage. I took a good man who loved me, and I destroyed him for money that's already gone." She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze directly for the first time. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even deserve to be breathing right now. But you asked for honesty, so here it is. I hate who I became with you. I hate that I turned into my mother." That last sentence caught Victor off guard. In 5 years of marriage, Elena had mentioned her mother maybe twice, always deflecting when he tried to learn more about her family. "Your mother," he prompted gently. Elena laughed, but it was a broken sound, devoid of humor. "My mother married 4 times. 4 different men, each one wealthier than the last. She taught me from the time I was 12 that love was a fairy tale and security was the only thing that mattered. Marry rich, stay beautiful, and always have an exit strategy," she'd say. "Men are wallets with legs, baby girl. Don't ever forget that." Elena's hands twisted the hospital sheets. I watched her bleed every husband dry, then move on to the next one without a backward glance. I swore I'd never be like her. Swore I'd marry for love, find something real. But then my father died when I was 28, left us with nothing but debt. My mother's 4th husband had already left her by then. We lost everything, the house, the cars, the lifestyle. I was working 3 jobs just to keep us afloat. She paused, her breath shaky. Then I met you at that gala. You were kind and successful and lonely, and I saw an opportunity. I told myself it wasn't about the money, that I could grow to love you. Maybe I even believed it at first. But every time I looked at my bank account, every time I bought something expensive, I heard my mother's voice. See? I told you security matters more than love. I became exactly what I swore I'd never be. Victor sat back, processing this new information. It didn't excuse Elena's actions, but it provided context he'd never had. She wasn't just a gold digger. She was a woman who'd been groomed by her mother to see relationships as transactions, who'd internalized those toxic lessons so deeply she couldn't see another way. "Where's your mother now?" he asked. "Dead," Elena said flatly. "Died alone in a studio apartment 6 months before I met you. None of her ex-husbands came to the funeral. She had no friends, no real relationships, just a lifetime of manipulation and a lonely death, and I'm following right in her footsteps." The despair in her voice was palpable. Victor felt something shift inside him. Not forgiveness. He wasn't ready for that, might never be ready. But understanding, maybe compassion for the broken woman in front of him who'd been taught all the wrong lessons about love and worth. "Elena, what you did to me was wrong. Deeply, profoundly wrong. The affair, the theft, the plotting, that's not something I can just forget or overlook." Elena nodded, not looking away. "I know. I'm not asking you to. But," Victor continued, "I don't think you're garbage. I think you're damage. I think you learned some terrible lessons from a terrible teacher, and you made terrible choices because of it. That doesn't erase what you did, but it helps me understand why." Elena's eyes widened with something that might have been hope. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Victor chose his words carefully, "that I'm not going to abandon you in this hospital room. I'm saying that maybe, just maybe, you deserve a chance to become someone different than your mother. Someone who can learn from their mistakes instead of repeating them until they die alone." He leaned forward. "But hear me clearly. Elena, we are divorced. That's not changing. What you destroyed, you can't get back. The trust is gone. The marriage is over. But I can help you get professional help. Real therapy, not just a hospital psychiatrist. I can make sure you're stable and safe. Not because you deserve it, but because I'm choosing to be a better person than my anger wants me to be." The hope in Elena's eyes transformed into something deeper, gratitude mixed with overwhelming relief. "Why?" she whispered. "After everything I did, why would you help me?" Victor thought about Margaret, his first wife, who'd always believed in second chances, who'd taught their children that mercy was strength, not weakness. Because someone very wise once told me that hurt people, and that the only way to break the cycle is to choose differently. He stood up. "I'm going to talk to the doctors about transferring you to a private facility when you're medically cleared. Somewhere that specializes in trauma and behavioral therapy. I'll cover the costs, not for you, but for the person you might become if you do the work." Tears flowed freely down Elena's face now, but they were different tears, tears of genuine remorse and unexpected grace. "I don't deserve this. I don't deserve your kindness." "No, you don't," Victor agreed bluntly. "But I'm not doing this because you deserve it. I'm doing it because I need to. I need to know that I can be hurt and still choose compassion. That I can be betrayed and still choose to help someone find their way back to humanity." He moved toward the door, then paused. "But Elena, understand this. If you waste this opportunity, if you manipulate the situation or try to worm your way back into my life romantically, the help stops immediately. This is your one chance to rewrite your story. Don't waste it." Elena sat up slightly in bed, her voice stronger now despite the tears. "I won't. I swear to you, Victor, I won't waste this. I'll do the therapy. I'll do the work. I'll become someone I can stand to look at in the mirror." Victor nodded and opened the door. Detective Morrison was waiting outside, looking curious. "Everything okay in there?" "It will be," Victor said. "Can you give me the contact information for doctors?" I need to arrange some things. The detective raised an eyebrow but pulled out her card. You're a better man than most, Mr. Harrington. Or a bigger fool, Victor said with a tired smile. Time will tell which one. He left the hospital as the sun began to rise over Atlanta, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Victor felt exhausted but somehow lighter, like he'd been carrying a boulder and finally set it down. He'd gotten his revenge. Elena had lost everything and hit rock bottom. But somewhere in that hospital room, revenge had transformed into something else. Not reconciliation, but perhaps redemption. For both of them. His phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Dad, you doing okay? Jasmine and I are worried about you. Victor smiled and typed back. I'm better than I've been in months. I'll explain everything when I see you. Love you, son. He climbed into his car, started the engine, and drove away from Grady Memorial, away from the past 4 months of deception and pain, toward whatever came next, older, wiser, and surprisingly, still capable of hope. But as Victor merged onto the highway, heading home to his empty mansion, one question gnawed at him. Had he just done something profoundly compassionate, or had he opened the door for Elena to hurt him one final time? Only time would tell. And in the meantime, he had a life to rebuild, one honest moment at a time. Will Elena truly change, or is Victor making the biggest mistake in his life? What happens when Marcus finds out Victor is helping her? Comment your thought below and make sure you're subscribed, because Final Chapter is a finale you've been waiting for, and nobody will see this ending coming. 6 months later, Victor stood in the grand ballroom of the Carter Foundation, surrounded by Atlanta's elite at the annual charity gala. It was the same event where he'd met Elena 5 years ago, and returning here felt like closing a circle. But everything was different now. He was different now. The past 6 months had been transformative in ways Victor never expected. He'd sold a mansion, too many ghosts, too many painful memories. Instead, he bought a contemporary penthouse downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a space that was entirely his own. He'd reconnected with his children in deeper ways, having weekly dinners with Michael and his family, going to Jasmine's art gallery openings, playing golf with David on Sundays. Work had taken on new meaning, too. Victor had launched a foundation dedicated to helping women escape cycles of financial abuse and manipulation, inspired by Elena's story about her mother. It was his way of turning pain into purpose, of ensuring something good came from the wreckage of his marriage. Tonight's gala was the foundation's official launch, and Victor felt genuinely proud of something for the first time in years. Dad! Jasmine's voice cut through his thoughts. She approached with her husband Marcus, not the Marcus, thankfully, but Marcus Williams, a good man who'd loved his daughter for 15 years. The turnout is incredible. We've already raised over $2 million. Victor smiled, pulling his daughter into a hug. Your mother would have loved this. She always said the best revenge against darkness is to create light. They'd been talking about Margaret more lately, sharing memories, honoring the woman who taught them all how to love properly. As they chatted, Victor noticed someone entering the ballroom who made his heart skip a beat. Elena. She looked different, healthier, more grounded. Her hair was natural and pulled back simply, her dress elegant but not ostentatious. She'd lost the desperate glamour she'd worn like armor during their marriage. She looked like a woman who'd found peace with herself. Their eyes met across the room, and Victor saw her hesitate. He gave her a small nod, permission to approach. She walked over slowly, nervously, like she was approaching something fragile that might break. Victor, she said softly when she reached him. I wasn't sure if I should come, but Dr. Matthews thought it would be good for my recovery to face you again in a healthy context, to show you that I'm doing the work. Jasmine stiffened beside him protectively, but Victor placed a gentle hand on her arm. It's okay, sweetheart. Give us a moment. His daughter nodded reluctantly and stepped away, though she kept Elena in her peripheral vision. Victor turned his full attention to his ex-wife. You look well. Elena, how's the treatment going? It's hard, Elena admitted. Really hard. Some days I want to quit and fall back into old patterns. but I keep showing up. I'm working at a nonprofit now, helping women transition out of domestic violence situations. It doesn't pay much, but it's the first job I've ever had that makes me feel like I'm worth something beyond my appearance or who I'm dating. She paused, her voice becoming emotional. The therapy helped me understand that I didn't just hurt you, Victor. I hurt myself. I traded my soul for security and ended up with neither. But because of your compassion, because you gave me that chance in the hospital, I'm learning to build a different life. One based on who I am, not what I can take from someone else. Victor studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation, of the old Elena trying to work an angle. But all he saw was sincerity and hard-won self-awareness. I'm glad you're doing better, he said honestly. I meant what I said that day in the hospital. I wanted you to become someone different than your mother. It sounds like you're working toward that. Elena nodded, tears forming in her eyes. I am, and I know I can never make up for what I did to you, can never repair the damage. But I wanted you to know that your kindness saved my life in more ways than one. You showed me that I could be more than what I was taught to be. Before Victor could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. Marcus Jenkins, the Marcus, pushed past security, his face flushed with alcohol and anger. Victor's security detail, led by James, moved immediately to intercept, but Marcus's voice carried across the ballroom. There she is. There's a little gold digger who tried to ruin my life. He pointed at Elena, stumbling forward. You told the police I manipulated you, got me investigated, cost me half my clients, all because your meal ticket cut you off. The ballroom fell silent, hundreds of eyes turning to watch the drama unfold. Elena's face went pale, but she didn't run or hide. She stepped forward, her voice calm and clear. I told the police the truth, Marcus, that you knew Victor was faking his blindness and encouraged me to steal more money before he caught on, that you suggested ways to access his offshore accounts, that you're the one who first mentioned that stress could trigger real medical conditions in a man Victor's age. She held her ground as James and two other security guards grabbed Marcus. I take responsibility for my choices, but I won't let you rewrite history to make yourself the victim. Marcus lunged toward Elena, but James caught him easily, twisting his arm behind his back. Get him out of here, Victor said coldly, and call the police. He's violated his restraining order. As they dragged Marcus away, his shouts echoing through the ballroom, Victor looked at Elena with new respect. The old Elena would have crumbled under that confrontation, would have fled or manipulated her way out. This Elena had stood firm and spoken truth, even when it was uncomfortable. The guests slowly returned to their conversations, the incident becoming tonight's gossip fodder. Elena turned to Victor, her composure cracking slightly now that the adrenaline was fading. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring drama to your event. I should go. Stay, Victor said, surprising himself. You handled that with dignity. That took courage. Elena looked at him with wonder. After everything, you still see good in me. Why? Victor thought about the question, really considered it. Because I've learned that people are more than their worst moments. You were shaped by trauma and toxic teachings, but you're choosing to break those patterns. That's not easy. That deserves recognition. He gestured to the ballroom. This foundation exists because of you, in a way. Your story, what you went through with your mother, the cycles you were caught in, it opened my eyes to how many women face similar programming. You inspired me to create something that could help others avoid the path you were pushed down. Elena pressed her hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep doing the work, Victor replied. Say you'll keep choosing growth over regression. That's all. They stood there for a moment, two people who destroyed each other and somehow found a way back to mutual respect, if not love. Then Jasmine appeared at Victor's elbow with Michael and David flanking her. His children looked at Elena with guarded expressions. Dad, Michael said carefully. You good? I'm good, Victor assured him, pulling his children close. I'm better than good. Actually, I'm exactly where I need to be. He looked around the ballroom, at his children, at the foundation that would help countless women, at Elena standing tall despite her past, at the life he'd rebuilt from ashes and betrayal. Yes, he'd been tested. Yes, he'd been hurt in ways he'd never imagined possible. But he'd also learned that survival wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about what you did with it afterward. You could let it make you bitter and closed off, or you could transform it into something meaningful. Victor had chosen transformation. As the evening continued, Elena quietly slipped away, respecting boundaries but leaving with more than she'd arrived with: validation, acknowledgement, and proof that change was possible. Victor watched her go, feeling nothing but peace. No regrets, no what ifs, just acceptance. "Dad," Jasmine said softly, "I'm proud of you. What you did for her, even after everything, that took real strength. Mom would be proud too." Victor's eyes misted. "Your mother taught me that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I chose to let it go. Not for Elena, but for me." As the night wound down and guests began to leave, Victor stood by the windows overlooking Atlanta's glittering skyline. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for giving me a chance to be better. I'll spend the rest of my life owning it." Elena. Victor smiled and deleted the message. Not out of spite, but because he didn't need to hold on to it. The past was past. Forgiveness wasn't about reconciliation or restored relationships. It was about freeing yourself from the prison of resentment. He typed a final text to his children. "Dinner at my place Sunday? I'll cook." 3 immediate responses. "Absolutely. Wouldn't miss it. Can I bring the grandkids?" Victor laughed, feeling lighter than he had in years. Yes, he'd been betrayed. Yes, he'd been tested in the cruelest way possible. But he'd emerged on the other side intact, stronger, more compassionate, and surrounded by people who genuinely loved him. Elena had taken a lot from him: his trust, his peace of mind, his belief in love. But she'd also given him something unexpected: clarity. Clarity about what truly mattered. Not wealth or youth or passionate romance, but authentic connection, personal growth, and the courage to extend grace even when it wasn't deserved. Victor Harrington had pretended to be blind to test his wife's loyalty. What he discovered was that he'd been blind all along, blind to what real love looked like, blind to his own worth beyond his bank account, blind to the difference between loneliness and solitude. Now, at 60 years old, he could finally see clearly, and the view was beautiful. 6 months ago, he'd thought revenge would heal him. Instead, he'd learned that healing came from forgiveness, boundaries, and choosing to believe that people, including himself, could change. As Victor left the ballroom and headed home to his new penthouse, his new life, his new understanding of himself, he realized something profound. The best revenge wasn't destroying Elena. It was becoming the kind of man who could survive a betrayal and still choose kindness. That was true power. That was true wealth. And that was the happy ending he'd been searching for all along. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories about betrayal, redemption, and second chances. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to choose differently. What did you think of Victor's decision to help Elena? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and remember, the best revenge is becoming your best self.